What's that? We are at time, but we'll let a couple folks filter in. It is kind of the end of day talk before everybody gets the snacks, right?
Or the train.
What was that?
Or the train.
Or the train. That's true. That's true. All right. Whenever we're ready, we're good to go? Cool. All right, so hello everyone. Super happy to be here today. So today we're gonna be talking about avoiding learned helplessness and how to leverage SIGs or special interest groups for your enterprises. So when we're working within these highly regulated enterprises, open source consumption and contribution processes can be very challenging. And many times within the technical culture space, there are these perceived roadblocks that can get in the way of development, which has unintended consequences. And so one of these being that the technologists do not know how to access their dependencies, resolve vulnerabilities, spin up even their desktop, and many other things, or even upgrade specific packages, which then turns into a slowdown in innovation. And so we're gonna talk about a little bit about that today and how to resolve it. So first, about myself. So I'm Brittany Istenes, hello. Really happy to be here. From the Linux Foundation. This is just absolutely fantastic. My first talk ever at FINOS, which is exciting. I am a Temple University alumni, originally, what? Oh, yeah, thank you. It's Rico Browns. Temple University alumni. I started off in education, currently work at Fannie Mae as their open source program office strategist, and sit as co-chair on two special interest groups at FINOS, which is open source readiness, as well as the inner source special interest group. And this picture of me, yes, is I am a huge Cleveland Browns fan. There's nothing I can do about it. I live in Cleveland. It is what it is. Last year, Thursday Night Football, Detroit Lions, nothing but rain. It was absolutely just a disaster, and the Browns lost, but you know what? That's par for the course of being a Cleveland Browns fan. So that's me.
And hello, everybody. I'm Cara, Delia, and I am a senior principal vertical architect or community architect at Red Hat. And so what that means is I work in predominantly upstream communities for financial services and climate sustainability. I've been part of FINOS and financial services for the bulk of my career. I actually worked at several of your organizations before going to the vendor side, the other side. I work at Red Hat, as I said, and I, along with Brittany, am a co-chair of the Open Source Readiness SIG. I'm on the Technical Oversight Committee for FINOS and am a co-author of last year's State of Open Source and Financial Services paper or survey report as this year with Colin Eberhardt and the Linux Foundation Research. I'm a Hokie, so again, with the football theme, we don't have a great season, sorry. But I also sit on the CNCF and was the founder of the TAG for environmental sustainability.
All right.
So today we're going to talk about exploring the relationship between open source and SIGs and discussing reasons why you would want to implement SIGs within your organization and analyzing how you can really take advantage of SIGs and adopt them into your organizations. And we'll talk about some practical use cases and give you some resources.
And so coming back to some of the themes, what is learned helplessness and how does this play inside of your enterprise? And it is more common than we know. And so I may ask, raise your hands if this happens. I don't know, I'm just kind of off the cuff here, but just curious. So the definition is, it's a condition where a person has a sense of powerlessness arising from an event that causes the concept of failure to succeed. And when you're working in technology, how often have you failed to succeed based within your enterprise, right? Just think about like past times, especially when you're first getting started. And so the impacts, this really does impact the company because many times it's not my job, it's not my problem. And that can cause a trickle-down effect that really slows the concept of innovation. And so these roadblocks, so that's something that we want to avoid because it really does impact a company, right? How many times have you all gotten support tickets for avoidable questions, right? It happens all of the time. How do I access Confluence? How can I get my email, right? What's happening? I don't know how to update my calendar. Or my DAS system isn't working. Like, what do I do, right? It happens all of the time, and what that does, all of a sudden, that one question, that person's waiting for an answer. They're not looking up the answer. And now all of a sudden, 3 hours of lost development. Not saying that we are humans and we are there to code, but our innovation, our motivation, it just starts to wane. You know, support teams, we need and love our support teams, but they are bogged down with these low-level impacts. All of a sudden, you have a support team that's maybe 3 people. It's very common. And they're getting 100 tickets because somebody can't update their calendar. It's insane to me. And so what that does is it slows down the innovation. And then now I'm sitting here as a technologist trying to work, and I'm getting antsy, and I'm getting nervous. And I'm just like, okay, well, I just lost 4 hours of productivity on a Tuesday. Now it's Thursday. This happens again. 3 hours of productivity lost. That's stressful because we do like our jobs. And so what that does is it provides a brain drain, right? The Great Resignation was very real. And many of us did make that migration. I did. I made the Great Migration to a different company because of this. So we know between April 2021 and 2022, 71.6 million people left their jobs, which is huge, right? We realized that not only we can just do better, right? I want to work somewhere where I can feel impacted. And you know, this happened because the tech industry, we were given lower wages, higher development demand, and the lack of innovation because we weren't supported. And what that equaled out to is 3.98 million people left their job each month. How many people felt that feeling back then, right? Are still feeling it now. You don't have to raise your hands with that. So, right, and it's true. So what can companies do to avoid this learned helplessness concept?
And that's where the power of open source comes in. So accelerating innovation and satisfaction through learning and leveraging the open source principles to be able to be empowered and to help to mitigate the risks of those impacts that Brittany had talked about. So what are those values? It's transparency, it's collaboration, it's releasing early and often, inclusiveness, and community. So using the support ticket example, there was transparency within the organization as to how you could be able to empower yourself to do this, to make the changes. You're not dealing with the lost time. You're not dealing with the employee dissatisfaction. You're encouraging collaboration because if this is something that somebody else has had, just as an open source, you pull down a PR or and myself. Yeah. You create inclusiveness by making sure that people are working together. They're seeing that their peers are having this problem too, because in addition to being frustrated and antsy, it also can lead to imposter syndrome. Like, well, why can't I do this? Why do I not know what's going on? Does everybody else know what's going on? So it's making sure that we are creating, that community so that people do feel like they're a part of it, they can contribute to it, and then they can also not be on an island. So open source impacts, kind of just what we're talking about, creating this process to help the people, to help to innovate, and then to iterate, create that maturity model. So for process, a lot of it has to do with, it's not just about the code coming in. You can have your governance, you can have your OSPOs helping with creating the policies and the strategies, but it's just making things known, how to get information and making sure that it is iterative so that you can be able to access the innovations that are being created across the organization.
So yes, so special interest groups, this is where these are really coming into play. They serve as catalysts for awareness. I'm going to read directly off the slide because it's just so true. So for catalysts for awareness, education, especially being a former teacher, this is very important to me, education and advocacy surrounding important practices. And that's just practices I just think in life, but also it's really applicable for software development.
So what is a SIG? A special interest group where a community of practice is the opportunity for people to come together and deal with a like-minded issue or problem that they want to solve. Really, the key is being able to create a solution together. And hundreds of these exist in open source projects, in foundations. There's, I think, over 80 within the FINOS Foundation. It's formed by individuals. I already think of, or today I've already had conversations about talking about 2 other projects that could be started and standards bodies. But it's working across your enterprise to be able to have that shared interest and to help create solutions. Examples of SIGs. So InterSource Commons, if you haven't visited there or you're not familiar with InterSource, that is a great starting place. It's a wonderful breadth of research or resources. We do have InterSource SIG that illustrious Brittany is a part of, and we both are co-chairs on the Open Source Readiness SIG. And if you weren't in the conversation earlier today, Open Source Readiness SIG is really great to as an entry point, especially into FINOS with the breadth of projects that we do have. For everyone at any stage within their open source game or journey. The to-do group is, that's all things open source, OSPO related. So making sure they have tons of resources. They are also in the LF Chaos metrics, and they have plenty of SIGs as well.
Yeah, and just to really touch on what you just mentioned, which I absolutely love, they are welcome to everyone. You do not need to be a subject matter expert to jump into a special interest group. We're going to talk in a little bit about the roles and how special interest groups are shaped, and when we do talk about this, I'll remind us all, think about where you think you would want to fit in, and there is definitely space.
And to tag team on that, you don't need to be a member either.
Exactly. So really where to start, right? This is where we're identifying our problem, right? Maybe think tickets, think about the problems that you have, and then think about the people that answered those questions. Think about the people that are always there answering the questions.
Where can I?
That's all good. I was like, I swear I don't know how to do puppetry. I don't know how to do it.
Very, very, very careful step. In fact,
But I do
sometimes
kind
they
of
love the
act like a
technology,
Jim
but
Henson's
there's
Muppet, so it's
too
fine.
much fear in
So
the,
anyway, identifying your internal champions. This means
I would
the
like
person
not mine.
that is answering all of the
Is
questions all the
fixing-
time. Celebrate this person. They are your champion. They are the people that are there to actually do the right thing. Define your goals and objectives. Right, okay, simple problem. We can solutionize this. We can solve
And
it.
at the
So
end,
that's huge.
that's
So think about it. Creating a charter.
feedback I've
Creating a
received from
charter
people
is
like you
really
in this
important
room
because
is
you
that
are
it matters so much
creating
to
a space
countries.
that actually has the goals, your objectives, and defined. And then you can start really seeking that buy-in, as well as going back to seeking leadership buy-in. We all have this concept of capacity. Oh, I can't do it. Too busy. Oh, I need to get this done. Get your leaderships to buy in.
And actually, before we continue, is there a way to turn off that other lavalier? Okay, cool. That happened. That was. I know. So, but communicating and what the charter is. Pretty finding advocates, being a champion yourself, being a decentralized to making sure that your SIG is going to get promoted and be understood, the value of what it's going to provide the organization, and create meetings. I know nobody wants an additional meeting, but have them be intentional and make it inaugural, and then have your regular meetings. But making sure that there's an agenda, there's a purpose. If there isn't, then do you need to have that meeting? Do you really need to have that SIG? Typically, you are going to need a meeting to be able to support a SIG. Perfect example would be the open source working group. We only had one a month. We were like, we're not getting anything done. And so now we have them 2 times a month, and we have one that's focused more on strategy and one that's more focused hands-on keyboards. Or let's put together a roadmap or a plan. That's how our body of knowledge training, but develop your work plan. I think collaboration is a no-brainer at this point, and but measure your progress.
Yeah. Because if you notice how we set up the slides, seek leadership, Ryan.
These more 3D type of experiences that they expect. So that's the executives are because they don't understand, but they really should be, I guess.
Started developing personas. So you have your charter, and then within your charter, you are identifying and seeking problems to solve, right? Who are these folks that you're trying to solve the problems for? So those are your personas. And then what you can do is you can start pinpointing your plan and your working group sessions and your working sessions to solve those concerns. And then with your personas come into play, then you can actually identify maturity models within each persona, because then you can scale the education based on each person. And then scorecards are great. You know, a little shout out to OpenChain. They have a great simple scorecard that you can start off with, which is great, that can be shaped to your program. And then of course, you know, what we're doing right now, presentations, right? You want people to be excited about this sort of stuff. And so roles in special interest groups. So many times when we work in our special interest groups, many of these roles fall onto one person. And what we're here to do is, you can see how many of them kind of work together if you look at, you know, researchers and technical experts. But for a special interest group to be successful, you want to distribute these roles, because many times within special interest groups, this is volunteering time because you want to solve this problem. So for one to be successful, Cara and I, we broke down all of the different roles that you can have in a special interest group, and this is the best way to do it. So that way you're distributing the workload. You're going to be successful if you just start thinking in this way. So you have your facilitator. You know, sometimes people come into special interest groups and they're like, I have an idea, but I don't like talking. That's what the facilitator is for. They are there to help, not pull you out of your shell. They are there to give the information to others, right? They are there to lead these sessions. Then you have your contributors, right? They work very closely with the facilitators. Documentation lead or leads, I like to look at this role as kind of a multifaceted role, because one person, let's say Addie, she's like, Brittany, I have a bunch of ideas. You document them up. I'm like, it's a lot of work. Let's do it together, right? And so things like that. Ambassadors, I like to look at ambassadors and mentors as similar, right? The ambassadors, they advocate for your special interest group. They're going out there, they're saying, we solved this problem, how can we help you? And let's say another person gets excited and they're like, I want to get started on that. Well, a mentor is there to help and guide you through all of these processes. And then, of course, your technical experts are very important, because there are some things that Cara can do that I can't, right? And then vice versa. Some of the great development work, Sterling, for example, does amazing development work in the DevOps space. I can't do that. I can understand it, but I couldn't just put pen to paper, keys to keyboard and do that. Oh, laptop fell asleep. All right, hang on, she fell asleep. Oh, there we go. And then your researchers.
Well, and so I think also here the key point is why we had making sure that we have the roles outlined. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are more roles that can be even more outlined, but it's letting everybody know that they have a place within the SIG, that while you're saying you might not be as savvy on the coding side, mm-hmm. you might be really great at something else. And so, you know, making sure that someone has that due diligence from the, you know, governance advisor, that's also going to be helpful too, because you're going to, having these different roles means you're going to have different people or stakeholders from the business. And they're going to be able to be an advocate back into their part of the business. So for an example, you know, with the liaison to external groups, really all of these could be that, but there are people that, you know, from the event side or the quality assurance side, they're going to be talking to two different people. And they're going to be getting information and distilling it in different ways. And so it's making sure that, you know, everybody has a seat at the table, but then also that can be transferred into not just the qualitative, but the quantitative metrics that can happen. So, while you can tell you've worked faster, you've gotten X amount more tickets addressed, whatever metric that you're trying to achieve, you also can say, well, we bent or we worked through the silos. Silos in financial services are like, 4th of July and apple pie. I don't know. But being able to bend the walls a little bit, to be able to work with the different lines of business, this is a great opportunity to be able to have that transparency and collaboration that we were talking about.
Yeah. And then a real life example of something that we worked really well within my organization, we noticed there were so many concerns with Python. I can't do it. I'm having a hard time running this. I don't know what to do. What we did is we found our champions. We created strong documentation, and now folks are actually going to like Teams channels. They're asking questions. They're not filing tickets. We saw a 75% reduction. This is SIGs in practice. This is when they're working in actual tickets, which opened up a whole new wave of issues for that team, but we're working on that too, but it's great. But it was absolutely fantastic, so you could see how this could work internally.
Create a dedicated space. So this is definitely an opportunity area for financial services in ways that communication happen maybe externally, but internally it would be a little bit easier. And so, as you can have an internal portal, something similar to, I don't know, Backstage, GitHub, or GitLab collaborative spaces, while you might not be able to leverage it externally for open source projects, being able to, have that, bring in some of those inner source principles and leverage GitHub or GitLab. Google Drive, being able to use shared documents, using a team, Microsoft Teams, or a Slack instance. And then for documentation, go into Stack Overflow.
Yeah, and Stack Overflow, great space for question and answer, right? Somebody asks a quick question in Teams, you're like, oh, that's great. I'm gonna throw it into Stack Overflow in a collection to be leveraged and researched later. Really smart way to do it. Yeah, we kind of talked about these quite a bit, right? So you know what we're doing. Yeah.
I think you all know.
Yeah,
you got
know
the
what
gist.
we're doing. So basically, this will be just a shameless plug. If you want to see how quality special interest groups in action, definitely join some of these calls. Mimi is in the special interest group as well. Addie works with Inner Source. You're actually seeing we are being very, what was the word you used? We're just
intentional.
Intentional, yes, being very intentional with the work that we do here. And I always walk away learning something new, which is really cool.
And I think this is also really highlights a good point, is across, again, 80 projects within FINOS, is seeing where there are commonalities, where we can come together. So it's not referenced here, but the DevOps automation SIG that is part of Backstage, and using what can be best practices in that SIG for open source readiness and inner source.
Yep. And so it all boils down to it. Why does any of this just matter, right?
Starting an inner source SIG requires commitment, time, dedication, and a collaborative spirit. So basically, it's just be a good human being and use resources in a more thoughtful and intentional way.
I left that one in. I'm sorry. I was thinking inner source in my brain when I typed it.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm just honing in there. And so with that being said, thank you all very much. Yeah. And then we can talk a little bit about our furry friends here. That little one with the eyebrows at the top, that's Bernie Kosar Jr. Yes? Yes. Yes.
And the little Cavalier King Charles Spaniel is Bonnie Buttercup.
Yep.
Yes, after the Princess Bride.
Aw, great name. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming today. This was pretty fun. Yeah. For me. Yeah.
Are there any questions?
So you said you don't have to be a member of those companies already to be able to tap into the resources. So when I saw, is it curated resources? Are there like tools and templates a part of this curated resources, and can you use those? Are they proprietary? Are they?
No, there's a member portal for certain foundations, but anything that's out there that is, and the question was, are there the tools and resources able to be leveraged in the open, or are they proprietary? They're able to be used. They're there. The to-do group has done leaps and bounds for resources. They just really knock it out of the park.
Yeah. And that's how, when you're doing things within your company, to that instance, maybe there is proprietary information. You can still keep it open, but yet regulated because it can't leave, right? Many times, I know you can't send an email attachment from like half of our companies, right? You can't unless you're sending it to someone else. So they kind of have that risk assessed, but you could still have that open source collaborative mindset in your company when working together.
Yeah, if you go to the city repo, they have their OSPO completely open. No judgment if you don't, but same with GitHub. They have their repos fully open to see about their OSPO, so you can leverage that for some best practices within your own organizations.
Oh, I slept again. Sorry. But yeah, any other questions? Are good?
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.